If you are a history nerd like myself, I'm sure you have imagined more than once what your life would have been like if you lived in ancient times. And just like 99% of all people that ever lived, we would most likely have been some poor bastards who had to work really hard just to survive. And as far as money goes, the fancy coins we see in this channel, fancy silver denarii and tetradrachma or incredible gold coins, would have been a rare sight for you. If you happen to live in a monetized society, the money you would see most of the time would have been low value, fiduciary coins out of bronze, copper, or other non-precious alloys. So that's what we're looking at today. Let's explore some examples of ancient pocket change, examples of the low-value money we could find of most cities and towns, the money of the masses. Of course, these coins won't win any beauty contests. The best die engravers and the fancier minting techniques were reserved for the precious metal coins. But to truly understand the monetary system of any nation, it is crucial to give as much attention to the smaller denominations as you would give to the big ones. The visual message in these coins, it's generally different, more catered to the common people, of course, sometimes showing images that represented aspects of daily life and elements of a local culture, while the precious metal coins were statements of power for the army, the elites, and even for foreign peoples who would get their hands on gold and silver coins through trade. And for this video, I'm doing things a bit differently. I'm going to show the typical famous Roman and Greek coins in another episode. Today, I want to show you coins from other civilizations. Celts, Persians, Indians. Of course, they needed pocket change just as much as the Romans and the Greeks did. So let's discover these coins together. And let's begin with our oldest coin for today, an example of Carthaginian pocket change. The cities under Carthaginian rule operated in what we could describe as a semi-independent way, when compared with their Roman rivals, who had a much tighter grip on how their territories were run. A Carthaginian city had much more flexibility in their internal affairs, and the issue of coins was one of these liberties these cities enjoyed. Here we have a coin from Gades, located on modern-day southern Spain, in the city of Cadiz. This is a quadrans from the 1st century BC, the smallest coin you could find in the city. Now, if you've done your history lesson and you've read about the Punic Wars, you will know that by the 1st century BC, when this coin was made, Gades was already under Roman rule. The city was besieged by Scipio Africanus in 206 BC, and since it surrendered unconditionally, the Romans awarded the city with a high level of autonomy. One of such privileges was to continue issuing their own coins, as well as, we will see when I put some drawings up on the screen, despite this coin being made under Roman rule, it retains much of its Carthaginian DNA. Alright, first, the obverse. If you like the coins of Alexander the Great, you will automatically recognize this bust. It's Heracles. But no, it's not. It's Melkart, the Phoenician interpretation of Heracles. It's a very similar design, with the mythological hero wearing the skin of the Nemean lion, although for this type, he's looking to the left, while on Alexander's coins, he's typically looking right. As for the reverse, we have the depiction of a dolphin, wrapped around a trident. Gades was a very important commercial harbor, so it's quite fitting to show symbols connected to the sea, of course. Bigger denominations typically show fishes as well on the reverse, so for example, in the ass we typically see a tunny fish, and of course we can assume fishing was a very important activity in the region. In fact, the Romans loved to put on their food a kind of sauce called garum, made out of fermented fish, and we know that a lot of the garum that Rome consumed came from Spain, came from the region where this coin is from. Apart from the design, we also have some legends in Punic script, which roughly translates to the port city of Gades. Now let's look at a coin from a Gallic tribe. This coin is from around of the Gallic Wars, so that is around the 1st century BC. During this time, the peoples of Gaul were going through a transition from their traditional rural lifestyle to a more urban one. It seems like their urban centers were getting larger, and by this time, base metal coins started being made, providing much needed small change for an economy that previously only had high value precious metal coins. What we have here is called a potin by numismatists, the word coming from pot, or pot metal, as these coins were made out of the cheapest alloys they had available. Think about lead, iron, scraps of bronze, pretty much everything they had on hand. This example comes from the tribe of the Leuki that inhabited the area around northeastern France, close to the border with modern Belgium. Since these coins generally have no writings or anything that states like a particular king or a chief or any leading authority, numismatists identify these coins by their main features. In the case of this coin, it's called a potin à la tête d'Indien, meaning Indian head, because as we can see, it has this cool little bust they thought looked like, well, an Indian. Notice also that different to most coins that were struck, this coin is cast. This allowed them to be made much faster than struck coins. You could just cast lots of coins at once. The only shortcoming with this technique is that you lose a bit of resolution compared to cast coins. As you can see, like the details aren't very sharp. As for the reverse, we have a boar, a common symbol used by the Gallic tribes, an animal that was a symbol of force and of strength, very commonly depicted on their art as well. Once more, very abstract, low-resolution image, but still a fascinating little coin. I wonder how Gallic coinage could have evolved if Rome didn't conquer the region. Imagine how Celtic coinage would have evolved like for 200 years. Next, let's look at some ancient Jewish pocket change. What we have here is a pruta from the province of Judea, struck between 41 and 42 AD in Jerusalem. Well, technically, when this coin was struck, it was the Kingdom of Judea, a vassal state under the Roman Empire. The Jewish people always had a pretty turbulent relationship with the Roman authorities, and Rome constantly had to send procurators and prefects to keep a close eye on the province. For this coin in particular, however, we have an example of a pro-Roman ruler, a pro-Roman Jewish ruler, Herod Agrippa I. Agrippa was raised and educated in Rome and was close friends with emperors such as Caligula and Claudius. With their support, he was appointed the king of the Jews and sent to rule over Judea in an attempt to approach the Jewish population from the Roman overlords. The pruta was a very small sum of money. It was apparently worth half a quadrans, the smallest denomination struck by the Romans. If we have in mind that a quadrans could only afford you an entrance to the public baths for a day, or a piece of fruit, or a very small loaf of bread, we can see these coins had very negligible monetary value, and they were struck in massive quantities, so this was the most common pocket change used by the people living in 1st century Jerusalem. The low value of this coin is even mentioned in the Bible, in a story where Jesus and his disciples watch as the people give offerings of gold and silver at the temple. Then a poor widow comes and adds 2 of these coins, all the money she had. Jesus then praises her, saying she donated more than anyone else, as this was all she possessed. In reality, the coins mentioned in the Bible were most likely a half pruta, so a coin worth even less, but numismatists generally claim the pruta, the single pruta, like this one, was the coin given by the widow. Alright, let's look into the details of this coin. On the obverse, we have 3 ears of barley. Very simple and functional design choice. This coin was issued to buy basic stuff like grain, like barley, so that's what you have on the coin. To the sides, we have an abbreviation of the regnal year, Etus Zeta, year 6, so the 6th regnal year for Agrippa. As for the reverse, we have the symbol of the Herodian dynasty, an umbrella with these cute little fringes. So you can see it's actually a royal umbrella. While previous prutas of earlier Jewish kings had inscriptions in Greek as well as Paleo-Hebrew, in the case of Agrippa here, we only have Greek. It reads, Basileus Agrippa, King Agrippa. The lack of Hebrew legends in this coin could be seen as an alienation of the Jewish people from such an important show of sovereignty they had, which was a coin, but on the other hand, the choice of showing the umbrella and the barley years must have been carefully chosen not to offend the Jews, as they forbid the use of graven images representing living beings. Now, for something very different that I rarely show in this channel, some ancient Indian coins. Here we have a small bronze drachma struck by the Kushans. The Kushans were originally a nomadic tribe, coming from the western part of what is modern-day China. They invaded western India and established themselves as an empire there. Just so we have a chronological idea here, the Kushan state existed from the 1st to the 4th centuries AD, and this particular coin we have here is from 125 to 158 AD. Let me put up on the screen an example of a gold coin of the Kushans. Their coinage is one of the nicest examples of a melting pot of different civilizations and different art styles. It's really incredible. We have clear Greek influences from the Bactrians, with the typical king on one side, deity on the other formula for the devices of the coin. We have Iranian influences with the depiction of different Iranian gods, and the Kushan king typically shown sacrificing on the holy Zoroastrian fire altar. There are also lots of different Indian and Greek gods shown on the reverses of these coins. It's amazing. In this example I have here, we even have the Buddha himself. It's like each coin is its own little world, with different cultures making an appearance in different parts of the coin. It's really cool. The Kushans struck mostly in gold and bronze, and the bronzes are very common and affordable, so it's a great type of coin to collect if you enjoy this kind of cultural blending. Alright, let's go back to our little drachma here. On the obverse, we have the bust of the Kushan king, Kanishka. Kanishka changed the official state language from Greek to the local Bactrian dialect. That's why this coin here is in Bactrian, while some of his early coins are generally in Greek. We have the king wearing his typical robes, carrying a spear and sacrificing on a fire altar, with the legends translating to King Kanishka. On the reverse, we have the god Oesho, long considered to be the Indic Shiva. From its size and weight, I mean this is just a copper coin of 3 grams, it's most likely this coin wasn't worth much, although the name drachma that people give to this coin typically reminds collectors of a silver coin of relatively high value. We can also see that these small coins had much less details if compared to the wonderful gold coins they produced. But still, an interesting type of coin with tons of different varieties and a great way to delve into Eastern cultures that we, Westerners, don't give the attention they deserve. Next, we have a little chalkous from the Parthian Empire. The Parthians were initially a nomadic tribe that took a province of the weakened Seleucid Empire. They exploited the Seleucids' weakness and took all of its massive territories, becoming themselves a huge empire that lasted over 4.5 centuries, rivaling the powerful Romans throughout their history. The Parthians adopted the Greek monetary standard for their coins. The most famous of all Parthian coins must be their very common silver drachma, struck in pretty high quality silver. What we have here is a little chalkous. You had to have 24 of these in exchange for 1 silver drachma, so we're looking at a pretty low value coin once more. This piece is from the very late in Parthian history, between the years 165 and 170 AD, so in the reign of Vologases IV, struck at the mint of Seleucia. On the obverse, similar to the silver coins, we have the bust of the Parthian king. I love how unique his royal headdress looks. To the top of his head we have these small arches, which could be the top of his hair, although it could also be some kind of crown, and it has some nice ear flaps too. The Parthian nobility fought on horseback, so these ear flaps were tied with a knot around the rider's jaw. This way the whole thing wouldn't fall off while they were galloping. On the reverse, we have a Greek goddess. This is Tyche, a goddess that protected cities, city walls, and everything related to urban life. She wears a crown made out of the walls and towers that protected a city. In a way, this is an incarnation of the city that produced this coin, and where this little coin would spend most of its time in. The Parthians were overthrown by another Iranian empire, the Sassanids. They also used a monetary system based on a silver drachma, although the Sasanian drachma looks quite different, being a large, thin coin instead of the compact, thick Parthian silver piece. Sasanian bronze coins are less common than their Parthian counterparts, and there's a lot we still don't know about these little copper pieces. They're called pashis, by the way. We aren't really sure, for example, how many of these pashis would we need in order to get a silver drachma. Here we have a pashis from Shapur I. This guy is important, the most famous Sassanid king, a name that struck fear in the hearts of any Roman soldier during the 3rd century AD. These were dated between the years 250 and 268 AD roughly. On the obverse, just like the silver pieces, we have the bust of Shapur, looking to the right. Interestingly, while on the silver pieces, Shapur wears his big crown with a circular element over his head. In this case, he doesn't wear a crown. On top of his head, we can see pretty much his hair instead. Other than that, we have some legends around the bust. Sadly, in this example, they are barely visible, but they must have had the same inscriptions as the original silver coins, so we could read something like, "The Great King Shapur, Defender of Ahura Mazda," something like that. On the reverse, once more, just like the silver coins, we have 2 guards attending the fire altar of the Zoroastrian god, which was called Ahura Mazda. Typically, we would also find some inscriptions here on the reverse, like in the silver coins we see something like the fire of Shapur, but it seems like for bronze pieces the design was simplified a bit, because I can't find any legends. Pretty interesting coin and relatively hard to find. Now, let's look at a coin of the Nabatean kingdom. The Nabateans were a series of Bedouin tribes that settled the region between the Arabian and the Sinai peninsulas. Theirs was a pretty long-lived state, being established around the 3rd century BC and finally disappearing in the 2nd century AD, being annexed by the Romans as basically a new province. The Nabateans were very well adapted to the harsh conditions of the Arabian Peninsula and its surroundings, establishing very lucrative trade routes between regions that produced spices, incense, and the big Mediterranean empires that paid hefty sums of money for these luxury goods. Their capital, Petra, is one of the most spectacular places you could ever visit, and I urge any ancient history lovers out there to go visit Petra one day. It's on modern-day Jordan. The Nabatean merchants certainly were very wealthy, but this humble little coin here is everything but a thing a wealthy person would carry. We don't know the exact name of this denomination, but it's most likely a pruta, the name of the smallest coin given by its Jewish neighbors, and was, as its small size suggests, a very small sum of money. This piece was struck by the very last of the Nabatean kings, Rabel II. Rabel was nominally a sovereign ruler, but his power was entirely propped up by the Romans. When he died in 106 AD, Emperor Trajan decided it was easier to simply annex the region, and the Nabateans were not in a position to mount any resistance. The protection afforded by the Romans actually helped them greatly to continue conducting their lucrative trade. On the obverse we have the bust of Rabel and his queen, Gamilat. Their coins draw heavy inspiration on Greek designs, despite them not being ethnical Greeks themselves. Notice Rabel and his queen even wear like little laurel crowns, so we have a bit of a Roman influence in this obverse. Lots of nice details for a small, humble coin. I like it. As for the reverse, we have 2 crossed cornucopia, the horns of abundance out of which an endless flow of fruits, vegetables, and grain would stream Once again, Greek influence. At the center of the design, we have an inscription in Aramaic, the language spoken in the region, making reference to the king and the queen. A lovely little coin. If you want to be serious about numismatics, I can't stress enough how important it is to look into the pocket change as well as the important precious metal coins. Did you see how wildly different the designs were? Now I want to hear from you, my viewer. Do you have an intriguing piece of ancient pocket change in your collection? Let us know what you have. Alright, I hope you liked this episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did, and I'll see you soon.